Now let's welcome broadcaster and lawyer Andrew Eborn to discuss the truly horrific case of Kaylea Titford. Andrew, for people who don't know about it, Phil...
You want to explain
I will.
this case?
It's a really tragic case. Kaylea Titford, she was 16 years old. She suffered from spina bifida. And unfortunately, during lockdown, she became bedridden. And basically, there were some of the most appalling conditions ever. Her clothes were all soiled. There were maggots crawling over her. And truly, truly tragic. And sadly, she died on around the 19th or 20th of October. They're not quite sure when.
Yeah, we're showing some pictures of her there. So one of them was, you know, they hadn't looked after her. You know, she's overweight. She wasn't being looked after. But as you say, it was the horrendous conditions which she was living in. You know, soiled, dirty bedding, maggots.
It was absolutely appalling. She was 23 stone. She ballooned up, and previously she used to love basketball. She was even possibly a contender for the Paralympics, they were saying. What happened is both...
she had spina bifida.
And then she had spina bifida and that sort of stuff. Both her parents were charged with basically manslaughter by gross neglect. Her mother, Sarah Lloyd-Jones, pleaded guilty, but her father said, I have no responsibility. I didn't do anything to her at all. And he tried to, well, he pleaded not guilty. The jury found them, both found him guilty as well.
Because the mum said, I am guilty.
Yeah, the mum said she was guilty. She said it was basically what it is, it's gross negligence is caused, manslaughter by gross negligence. And there are basically four elements to that. The defendant, basically there was a duty of care, which clearly there was. They breached that duty of care. Yeah. And as a result, it caused harm to the victim died. So really, really tragic case. They've both been found guilty now. Sentencing is going to take place on the 1st of March. And as with all these things, they look at culpability, they look at mitigating circumstances, because in lockdown, obviously there's tremendous pressure and so on and so forth. All of that evidence is going to come out, but it's a truly horrific case.
What was the dad's defence? Well, when he said, I'm not guilty, what was his defence?
He basically said he left everything to the mother. Mm-hmm. He said, I don't do anything at home, and actually it was the social services, the health and social services, who were to blame, because they worked on that sort of premise.
I mean, one of the elements of this is apparently she was restricted to a bed for 6 months since the start of the lockdown. The lockdown started and she hadn't moved out of her bed for 6 months. I just wondered, what I was interested in, Andrew, about this case is, I mean, I don't know which elements of this were the culpable things. I mean, obviously the fly-infested room, the soiled clothing, all that is terrible. But also about the fact that they'd allowed her weight to balloon to 23 stone. Yes. And I just wondered whether or not, you know, the other parents could be liable for their children's gross obesity.
And it does raise that issue, absolutely. They basically, as a parent, you have a parental responsibility for your children, and that includes their mental and physical well-being. So it could indeed be the case, and the jury felt that they were to blame for the ballooning weight. They should have done something about it. They ordered takeaways. They didn't take her out of the bed and get appropriate services in to look after her. So it was a real issue.
I mean, how unusual? I mean, thankfully, presumably, these cases are very unusual. I mean, I hadn't heard of gross negligence or manslaughter before.
Well, normally, I mean, you have murder if you do it with intent, and then there's manslaughter and so on and so forth. But by gross negligence is where you owe that duty of care. And the penalties can range from 1 year to 18 years in prison. And as with all these things, they look at the culpability, to what degree were they at fault? But also then you look at mitigating circumstances, aggravating circumstances, and look at that. And you might remember, we spoke about this bit beforehand, on 28th of July 2022, Judge Sarah Munro showed the first ever sentencing. It was televised, of Ben Oliver. So no doubt this will be a case where people will see the sentencing.
I think the sentencing's interesting, though, isn't it? Because, I mean, whatever they get on this range of sentences, 1 to 18 years, I think there'll be lots of people say it isn't enough. Even if they got the maximum sentence, I would say lots of people would think 18 years for treating their daughter in such an appalling manner. I mean, that kind
It was sadistic. I mean, it was bordering on sadistic, the way she was left and not supported. It was
absolutely awful. And that's what will happen. That will come out. That they will turn around and say, look, who's to blame and to what extent on that scale? Because justice should not just be done, but be seen to be done.
Do you think, as well, this parental responsibility, a big debate happening within the country, how much should a parent be looking after a child? It will go to, you know, are you eating, you know, are you making sure they eat well? Are they doing exercise? Are they getting education? Are they learning? Do you think, is this, in a rather macabre, awful way, a positive thing to put the focus back onto parent responsibility, not the state, not somebody else, but parental responsibility.
If some good can come out of it, you're absolutely right, Esther. I think to turn around and say, look, you have responsibility for your children, whether they're ballooning in weight, to make sure they get the appropriate nutrition and so on and so forth, but also to make sure they're not neglected. And these were squalid and inhuman conditions. I mean, absolutely appalling. You've seen some of the pictures already. You need to look after people. And if that one lesson can be learned, then some good comes out of it.
Because I think for so long now, people have been saying, oh, the state needs to do this, whatever it is, whether it is sort of feeding your children, looking after your children, more care of children. This is a reversal now, saying, no, the buck stops with you. You are the parent.
And I think, well, it does, but also at the Health and Social Service, there are questions to be asked, and they can be corporate manslaughter and that sort of thing. So it's both, but it doesn't negate your responsibility.
Andrew, thank you very much, as ever, for joining us. Terrible case.